What's up, everybody? Well, today I'm here to do another full house cleaning to test vacuum cleaning performance. This time I thought I would feature my Hoover Legacy 2. I do not think I've ever featured this in a full house cleaning video. And since the last time I made a video on this, there has been some changes to it. The first one being the motor that's in this. Originally, I had laying around as a parts motor, but now, thanks to a motor rebuild, it is now back in it. So now this thing has its original numbers matching motor. And the brush roll in this has also been upgraded as well. I thought laying around in a parts bin, I found this blue bristle dual row brush roll. The bristles on it are not as stiff as the white bristles, and which I kind of wanted to test that on this. I do like how they're a little bit softer than the white bristles, so they won't be as aggressive, which can definitely help prolong the life of some delicate surfaces or carpet fibers. And also you can see the motor down here is actually, yes, it's an 8 amp motor. I don't know what the heck makes it 8 amps, because there were other variants of this that had either 7.1 amps, or there was a 7.5, 8 amps like this, or 6.7 amps. There were a lot of amperage of motors back then. So I wanted to see how this would clean with its original 8 amp motor and a blue bristle dual row brush roll. Not as stiff as the white bristle. So per the usual tests, I run fresh new HEPA type A bags. And with that said, let's go ahead and get to full house cleaning with this thing. And so, away we go. As you can kind of see, kind of snagged on my bed because the hood on these Legacy models are a bit too tall. But minor nuisance. But grooming lines, per usual, the Elites groom very nice. The only issue is they're not perfect because you can see there's these 3 lines across there, and that's due to the bottom plate design. Because by about the late 90s, or excuse me, the late 91 into 92, they eventually went to this 3-bar plastic base plate that mostly was to prevent from socks getting picked up or any heavy obstacles, because early 91 and like 1990 they only had the 1-bar base plate, which unfortunately I don't have a Legacy that has that. But I've always thought the Elites that have the 1-bar groom the most excellent. They leave much more beautiful lines. But that's not to say this does a terrible job. It still has pretty good agitation, even with the brush roll having not as stiff of bristles as the white bristle one. And further to that, the motor in this, the 8 amps, as the label tag says, I honestly do not see a difference, or even hear one, as far as sound goes, versus like a 7 amp, 7.2 amp, 7.3 amp. So I've always tended to group these 8 amp motors with the 7 amp motors. And by the way, the fan impeller in this is the original 7 blade. 92 saw the discontinue of the 9 blade, and Hoover eventually went to 7 blade. Mostly to kind of cut down turbulence, because usually the higher 6 amp motors with the 9 blade fans kind of tend to have a whistle to them. So Hoover just cut down the blades to 7 to solve that. But let's go ahead and continue on. And just like that, full house cleaning is all complete. This is such a great runner. And honestly, even though this said this is 8 amps for the motor, I honestly could barely tell a difference sound-wise and performance-wise versus a 7 amp or 7.2 amps, 7.3 amps, those ones that came after 93. If anything, it may sound like the motor's turning a little bit slower than the actual 7 amp motors, but I've always grouped these with the actual 7 amp motor, despite the fact that the ratings gives it 1 amp motor. But performance and sound wise, these kind of sound the same as and perform the same as a 7 amp. Maybe if you guys know more about the amperage of these Elites, chime in, and maybe I could try and group these with the 6.7 amp versions, which was the lower end models, and I have one that's a 6.7 amp. But keep in mind, this thing still has a 7-bladed fan. But other than that motor confusion and honestly not telling the difference between sound and performance, we'll see how this does with the blue bristle brush roll with not as stiff bristles and a 8 amp motor with 7-blade fan. We'll see how its performance is. And as usual, these Elites always tend to surprise me. This thing definitely has a lot of pet hair, fine dust, and definitely some fibrous material from the downstairs rug. But as usual, these things just perform amazing. I'm amazed now where the vacuum industry has taken a turn. Everyone likes to gravitate towards the bagless models or even the clean air bagged models, which I understand their purpose in the industry, but these direct air motors, although not having the best of filtration, definitely do excellent as far as carpet cleaning performance, because you got to keep in mind the fan of a direct air motor is like right at the carpet. So yeah, all the stuff that'll definitely get picked up does get blown into the bag. And unfortunately, the downside for direct air is that they only technically have one filter, and that is the inner bag. Well, actually, the outer cloth bag definitely acts as a second filter, or a post-motor filter, if you will. But it's kind of limited to how good the filtration of the inner bags are. Like I said, with the introduction of modern HEPA cloth bags, you shouldn't have to worry about that. You can get excellent filtration, but unfortunately, they're still not a sealed system, so don't expect miracles. But HEPA cloth bags will definitely up the filtration of these direct air vacuums. But with that said, I hope you've enjoyed this full house cleaning with the Hoover Legacy 2. Be sure and stay tuned, and don't forget to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.